In 1960, I graduated 252 out of 252 from Bloomington High School. Was voted most likely not to succeed by both my classmates and teachers. I'm not proud of that. I had a lot of fun with it when I went back and spoke at the 50th reunion last year. And I married my wife a week out of high school. We just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. If I have one big success in my life, and Keith, Fred, and Anton will tell you, it's my wife. She's my biggest cheerleader. But I made my living the first 8 years of our marriage gambling after we got married. I mean, this was my typical day. I had zero ambition. None. I'd get up at 10, I'd drink a Pepsi, smoke a cigarette, watch As the World Turns, go to the pool hall, play pool to 10 or 11, come home, go to bed, get up at 10, drink a Pepsi, smoke a cigarette. I never missed an episode of As the World Turns for 8 years. Go to the pool hall and come home. And finally, my wife, after we had 2 kids, just gave me an ultimatum. Hey, you better get your life straightened out. So on Easter Sunday, 1969, we went to church. And the minute I got inside that church, I just started weeping uncontrollably. I couldn't understand it, didn't believe it. Long story short, later that week, my wife and I both lived up to the promise that I committed to my sister, and I accepted Christ in April of 1969. My desire for gambling went away just like that. I mean, it was gone. Absolute miracle. I haven't gambled since. It's not been a problem for me. But now I wanted to be a success in life. I didn't do anything for the first 6 or 7 months. I bumped around. But a guy changed my life one day when he walked up to me and said this. He said, "I've watched you for 6 months." He said, "You would make a great salesman." I said, "John, nobody's ever told me I'd be great at anything." He said, "I've watched you. You got a good personality, you carry yourself well, you get along with people. If you'll let me mentor you," as Jason said earlier, "if you'll let me mentor you once a week for 52 weeks, I'll help you to become a great salesman." And he did that. He poured his life into me. Well, now I went from zero ambition to be over ambitious. Okay, I didn't have the balance there. But I was going to prove Mom wrong. I was going to prove my teachers wrong. I was going to prove everybody wrong. I started in the heating and air conditioning business in 1968 with 3 employees. In 1974, we had 6 locations in 6 different cities, a wholesale company and a small manufacturing company, and boy, I had become somebody. I was big time in Bloomington, Illinois. You know, I was really going. Well, some of you in this room are old enough to remember when Jimmy Carter got in office, and interest rates went from, up to 23%. We were pretty heavily leveraged. I had about $500,000 in a loan at 8%. And in 1974, in 1979, those interest rates went to 23%. In less than 100 days, my wife and I lost everything we owned. Our 6 retail stores, our company, our house, our cars, everything. And who do you think was the first in line to say, "I told you so"? Never going to amount to anything. Don't focus on the successes, let's focus on the failures. And that was a real hard time for me. I bumped around for a couple of years, and I was flying home from Lubbock, Texas. This is how small a world it is. I was flying home from Lubbock, Texas, because I started speaking for a hobby, and I was doing a speech in Lubbock, Texas. And I met a guy by the name of Cecil Kemp, who was opening a bunch of health clubs down here in Dallas called Cosmopolitan Lady Health Clubs, who put me in touch with Anton Skell and Donna Skell, who were opening up the clubs. And my best buddy sitting right here, Keith Fred, and I loaded up our car in 1981 and came to Dallas, Texas to help them open up their health clubs. We cried all the way from Bloomington to St. Louis, and leaving our families and everything before we came down here. So I came down here, I worked with them, 6 or 8 months, but it just wasn't my bag. Keith stayed with them several years, but it just wasn't my thing. So I started doing some speaking for direct sales companies, and I was in Birmingham, Alabama in 1984. And I finished speaking at a luncheon, and a guy says, "You like cheeseburgers, don't you?" I said, "I love cheeseburgers. I've had a cheeseburger every day of my life for the last 33 years. I love cheeseburgers. I mean, I'm going to have one I didn't eat here. I'm going to have one when I get done here." And so he took me down to this place called Milo's Cheeseburgers. I took one bite of their cheeseburger. It had some sauce on it that was a hidden sauce, a great sauce, whatever. And so I said, "Man, this is my next big deal." I bought the marketing rights for Dallas. I came back and raised $500,000. I opened up one in Irving Mall in April 1984, Prestonwood Mall November 1984, closed them both in February 1985. Another business failure, down the tubes. I had met Zig in 1979 in Chicago, Illinois. Had the privilege of talking with him for about 10 minutes. And so I wrote him a letter, told him I was in Dallas. He called me, invited me over, said, I remember who you are. After 3 conversations, I went to work for him. I worked for him for 7 years, and that's when my whole life really changed and got in balance, because I started applying all the things that he taught, and he mentored me as well. I was his #1 producer all time. I still hold many national records today. My legacy, if I have any, is that Zig wrote a new book recently called God's Way is Still the Best Way, and wrote on the 24 people that impacted his life. He sent me an autographed copy, and I had my own chapter in there, which really was very, very humbling experience. So after that, in 1992, I just got tired of living in hotels, and I was doing some consulting for the Fuller Brush Company. They had an office in Boulder, Colorado. And so they called me and offered me a job out there to be their vice president of sales. And so my wife and I, on February 6, 1992, moved to Boulder, Colorado. Now, from the Bible Belt to Boulder, for a guy in his midlife crisis, was a major blow. I mean, I hated Boulder, Colorado. There was nothing I liked about it other than the scenery. 60 days to the day that I moved to Boulder, Colorado, I'm sitting in my office. A guy walks in. He said, I'm surprised to see you here today. I said, well, I'm just here today, and I got to they fly me around on a plane, and I go do seminars. I got to hit the road tomorrow. He said, did anybody tell you? I said, tell me what? He said, the bank took over the management of this company yesterday. They fired all of the executives, including you. It's 10:30. I want you out of here by 12 o'clock. No questions asked. Do you understand? 50 years old. 3rd business failure. Broke. I remember I got in the car. I drove up Boulder Canyon. I went over and I sat on a rock, and I put my feet in the creek. I don't even think I took my shoes off. And I looked at those mountains, and I felt like General George Custer saying, Lord, what am I doing here? I hate this place. I'm getting out of here. I'm shucking it. Mom's right. I'm nothing. 3 business failures. The whole night. I'm going to leave my wife. I'm getting out of here. I wanted to come back to Dallas. I loved Dallas. All my stuff was still back in Dallas. Suddenly, the Lord spoke to me, not in an audible voice, but in my spirit. And this is what He said. Dave Curry, don't you ever leave Boulder, Colorado. You stay in Boulder, Colorado. And for the first time in about 20 years, I listened to God and stayed. I ended up meeting a guy that had a company called Crestcom International, who's in the management training business. They're in 65 countries, 25 languages, 45 cities in the United States. I bought the franchise for Colorado in 1993, borrowed the money, and that put us back on our feet financially. Was extremely successful at that, became their #2 all-time producer out of all those offices around the world. I sold that in 2008 to come back to Dallas because we have a grandson here that has some health problems, and we wanted to be with him. And I sold that company, and it was very good to us. So, I finally had a business success. Now, I will tell you, some of you that know the training business and the speaking business, this year has been the toughest year for me in my 31-year career. That's how tough it is out there. I have not added a new client since August of last year, and I've been working my tail off trying to get new clients. And people ask you, how do you start over all the time? I said, well, Zig used to say, big shots, little shots, it just keeps on shooting. So you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and just keep on going. Pride, hustle, determination, PhD, that's what it is. I take pride in what I do. I hustle and give it my best shot. I'm determined to give it my best shot. And so that's what you have to do. You can't give up. You got to finish like a pro. That's the other side of what I talk about. So that shows you where I was in my business. So I'm going to give you a quick thumbnail sketch of my family situation. I have 3 wonderful children. I have a daughter in Tyler, Texas, that Jason knows, who's a very prominent criminal attorney. She's been on Larry King, Good Morning America, Court TV. She's won some big murder cases. And I have a son, 44, and my young daughter, Holly, is 40. And one grandson here, 4 in Orlando, Florida. When I got saved in a very legalistic environment. And guys, I'm here to tell you right now, legalism is a tool of the enemy. It'll destroy you if you let it control you. But we didn't know any different. I mean, that's all we knew. So I told my kids 3 things growing up that I wouldn't tolerate. My kids used to say, Dad, you're so narrow-minded you look through the keyhole with both eyes. You're Archie Bunker and Ross Perot in one package. You got to lighten up a little bit, But I told my kids, no divorce, because my parents divorced after 38 years of marriage and it destroyed our family. No drugs, because I had no use for drug people. And don't date anybody from other races, because that's the way I was raised. You didn't do that in my family. Well, my oldest daughter just went through her 3rd divorce. My son in 1989 came back from Liberty University, where he was best friends with Jerry Falwell's son Jonathan, and he got in with the wrong crowd and he became a serious drug addict. And I had to send him off to a drug rehab for 1 year up in New York, and he's been clean ever since. And since '92 I've run that drug rehab because they saved his life, and we got a great program. I mean, it's a 1-year program. We have a 61% success rate. He got his heart right with God. He was very active at Prestonwood Baptist, and then went through a bad divorce as well. Now he's a goth. If you know what a goth is, dress all black, paint their face white. He's over in Belgium somewhere, where I don't know. So you still live with a broken heart. I'm here because of his son. He's out having a good time, but all I can do is pray for him. That's all you can do. My youngest daughter, Holly, this is why God told me to stay in Boulder. My youngest daughter, Holly, has always been the apple of my eye. Probably always will be. You know how the young girls are. And I was speaking I was doing a consulting project in Houston for 4 months. And I would fly back and forth to Denver. I was living in Denver. And I had my car there. So I got all done with the project. I'll drive through Dallas. I'll surprise Holly. And I'll take her to dinner. So I came to Dallas, went to her apartment, was walking up the steps. And as my daughter came walking down the steps, she was holding hands with an African-American boy she was living with. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I got in my car. I went over, first of all, put my arms around her. I said, Holly, I love you. Kissed her goodbye. I got in my car. I drove 1,200 miles to Denver. All the while thinking, Mom's right. I don't amount to anything. My kids are whacked. All these business failures. Everything. That's it.